You step into a longhouse, the air thick with smoke and the smell of burning peat, and your breath forms small clouds in the icy chill that creeps through every crack. Imagine sitting there, winter winds rattling the roof, snow piled high outside, and every hearth barely enough to keep frost from crawling across the floor. How did the Vikings survive such brutal cold for centuries, and why did the method they perfected, a system of heat so efficient and enduring, vanish, only to be outlawed during... You can feel the tension of 1,000 winters pressing on those who lived before central heating, imagining the ingenuity required to keep an entire hall warm without suffocating its occupants or consuming endless fuel. This was not mere survival. It was engineering, experimentation, and careful observation distilled into a living, breathing system. The secret, quiet and overlooked for centuries, survived in whispers and traditions only to be suppressed by modern regulations. Yet the principles behind it remain alive, offering lessons about efficiency, resilience, and the clever manipulation of fire and airflow. To understand it, you have to see warmth as more than heat. It's controlled, directed, and amplified through design, turning frost into comfort with nothing more than skill and observation. The stakes were immediate and unforgiving. You would be responsible not only for your survival, but for the safety and comfort of everyone under one roof. In harsh Nordic winters, a poorly designed heating system could mean frostbite, illness, or even death. Fuel was scarce, laborious to gather, and often wet from snow, so waste was unacceptable. Every ember, every log, every spark counted. Longhouses were crowded with warriors, families, and livestock, all sharing the same space, meaning heat had to circulate efficiently without choking anyone with smoke. Mistakes were visible immediately. Cold corners, damp floors, or suffocating smoke could disrupt daily life and compromise health. Vikings observed patterns of airflow, heat retention, and the behavior of their fires over decades, learning to maximize warmth with minimal fuel. Hearths were strategically placed and smoke channels were tuned to carry heat across rooms rather than up chimneys and out. They combined intuition, repeated trial, and careful measurement, slowly creating a system that survived generations. You start to see that their secret wasn't a single invention. It was the culmination of careful attention to every detail, a method designed to endure winters that would cripple any modern home without careful planning. Here's the core system step by step. Imagine a longhouse with central hearths placed not just for convenience, but to optimize airflow and heat distribution. Fires were often built low and long, allowing heat to radiate slowly along the floor rather than rise immediately to the ceiling. Here's the clever part. Smoke was not wasted. It travelled through overhead channels lined with stone or clay, warming beams and the roof before escaping, effectively heating the structure passively. Floors were often raised slightly, allowing heat from embers and stones to circulate beneath, creating a gentle convection current that carried warmth into every corner. Walls were lined with insulating materials, often turf, wattle, or layered textiles, capturing heat without sealing the space completely. Livestock placement wasn't arbitrary either. Their body heat contributed to the internal temperature. Every element was intentional. Fire size, placement, materials, and airflow were coordinated to create a self-sustaining heating system. This is where it changes from a simple fire to an engineered solution. Heat moved like a living current through the building, amplified and guided rather than dissipating haphazardly. It wasn't technology in the modern sense, it was design intelligence, honed by necessity, observation, and centuries of refinement. Why did it work so well? Because it leveraged natural laws of physics rather than fighting them. Warm air rises, cool air sinks, and the Vikings guided that movement strategically to ensure even heat distribution. Smoke carried energy that would otherwise be lost, heating structural elements that then radiated warmth long after the fire dimmed. By layering insulation and using thermal mass in floors and walls, heat was stored and released gradually, reducing the need for constant feeding of the hearth. The clever logic is in synergy. The fire, the structure, the people, and even animals all became part of one integrated heating system. No mechanical pumps, no electricity, no chemical intervention, just observation, adaptation, and an intimate understanding of their environment. Tests on reconstructed longhouses show that a single central hearth, when properly designed, could maintain comfortable warmth for dozens of occupants through freezing nights using remarkably little fuel. The brilliance lies in subtlety. It was quiet, efficient, and resilient, allowing a community to thrive even when resources were limited and extreme cold was relentless. Modern engineers and preppers are beginning to realize that these principles still outperform many energy-intensive systems today. So why did it disappear and eventually get outlawed? Industrialization and the rise of standardized heating systems made the Viking method seem obsolete, slow, and labor-intensive. Regulations in wartime Europe, especially during WWII, restricted open flames, smoke, and fuel use for safety and rationing, effectively banning centuries-old practices. As stoves, boilers, and radiators became widespread, the subtle passive techniques were dismissed as folklore or unnecessary complexity. Craftsmen and families who still relied on these methods were compelled to adopt modern alternatives. The irony is that while modern systems increase speed and control, they often sacrificed resilience. A power outage, fuel shortage, or mechanical failure left homes unheated, whereas the Viking method survived even the harshest conditions. Knowledge wasn't lost because it failed. It was suppressed by changing technology, social structures, and regulation. Only recently have preppers, historians, and engineers begun to uncover these practices, realizing that efficiency, adaptability, and passive design can outperform many modern heating systems, even in extreme cold. The secret wasn't inherently dangerous. It was simply out of step with industrial norms. This matters to you today, because the challenges of cold energy scarcity and sustainable design are as relevant as ever. Understanding how Vikings used fire, thermal mass, airflow, and strategic placement to create enduring warmth can inspire modern architecture, off-grid living, and resilient heating strategies. You don't need to live in a longhouse to benefit. The principles translate into passive heating design, efficient wood stoves, or even smart use of building materials to capture and store heat. The genius of this method lies in harmony, working with natural processes instead of relying solely on energy-intensive solutions. Rediscovering these techniques reminds us that survival, comfort, and efficiency aren't just about modern tech. They're about observing, adapting, and designing with nature in mind. If this story changes how you think about heat, resilience, or sustainable living, explore further, share the knowledge, and consider how past wisdom can guide modern decisions. 1,000 winters proved it worked. Perhaps now it can prove invaluable to you.